We are preparing live stream. I'm also going to, there we go. I'll also record this. All right, guys, say hello to each other. Say hello to the world. What are you doing here?
Hello.
We're going to
go. Hey, Juan. Hey, Blake. Hey, brothers.
How's it going?
It's so good to be together.
Yes. Can't wait to be with you in Costa Rica.
So looking forward. Coming up.
Brothers, it's so good to be with you. ReMENber Bros coming back together once again. All right. So for those of you who are
in Costa Rica.
Oh, how do I make that?
So looking forward. Coming up.
Together once again. All right. Hang on a second. So for those of you who are
in Costa Rica.
Oh, how do I make that?
So looking forward.
So for those of you who are
in Costa Rica.
From the top.
We're live.
We're live.
Excellent.
Sound looping.
Taking care of it.
Sound looping. Yeah. Yeah. Well, hanging out with the guys and creating powerful men's work is more my forte than tech is. But
we appreciate you creating that.
Yeah. Thank you both for being here. Introducing Juan S. Elzate Meja and Gilly Oren 2, and of course, we got 3 of the 5 ReMENber Bros hanging out here to spend a little time and go live and have a chat. You know, we've been hearing from, we're constantly hearing from men in the world at the trainings we attend, at the various functions that we run in and out of community workshops and otherwise. Brothers are hurting these days. There's a lot of like, they're hurting, and there also is a lot of yearning, I think is the word that I feel. A lot of desire for community, for brotherhood, for spaces where men can do a lot of things together that are not widely available in common everyday lives. So I guess that's the question that I want to kick it off with is what are you guys seeing out there in the world as you listen to men speak about what they want, what they need, and maybe what's missing from their lives? What are you hearing? What are they desiring? What's the big challenge that men are really struggling with today? And my initial answer to this question, having just spent a bunch of time out in Utah with some brothers of mine, is really feeling where they're striving so valiantly to show up powerfully in their romantic relationships and doing everything they can to hold space and be a pillar of strength for their partners. But they're doing so much of it like behind closed doors without a whole lot of support or attention. And I really feel for them because there's a bit of like, it's like they're giving the effort and their heart's in it and they want to serve, but they can't really they can't really tell if they're getting it right. You know what I mean? They can't really tell if it's working because it's like a lot of the same problems are still there. And I think that what was beautiful about this experience I had recently was men really coming forward to like open up and put their truth of their relational life on the altar and say like, guys, this is how it really feels, in my home, in my love. And there's pain there, there's like a need for support, and so we were able to provide a bunch of that, being that we were a group of men out on the river together. But it really struck me as we were supporting each man in facing some of their relationship issues is like, how many guys out there just don't have any of this support, who are just trying to like courageously do it all by themselves. So anyway, that's one of the things that's been on my heart recently is like, how do we create more of like a brotherhood relationship council? A place where we can go and unpack all the stuff that we're all probably dealing with to some degree or another, or have dealt with in the past. Curious what you guys feel on that. And you're welcome to respond to that, share if that resonates for what you've been seeing out in the world. But I'm also curious, what are you hearing from men?
I love this question. Thank you. It's where do we start? Do we start with the need and the challenge, and even, as you said, the pain, or do we talk about the medicine? And I think both conversations are really important. What I hear now that is a little bit polarizing is, from one perspective, how do I embody healthy masculine traits? There's a big attack on the unconscious, immature masculine. Rightly so. This planet needs a different type of embodiment and leadership and role models of men to provide for potentially saving and transforming this planet.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I do that? Where is the wisdom? Where are the practices? Where are the groups that can support me in embodying those mature traits? And those traits are being asked by our partners, our kids, our community members, our career partners, by all of them. And on the other side, on the polarizing part, I see men really yearning to be loved with all their parts. And I think that's kind of like this both confusion in the outside of how do I show up and where do I learn those qualities, and also how can I really rest in who I am now and be completely loved. Mm-hmm. And that dance is deep and it's challenging. And I do agree with you. And obviously this is our work, this is our purpose, this is why we're here. And philanthropically, we mostly do our men's work, is that we think that I think that brotherhood is a medicine. I personally, on Saturday had a really challenging day with my partner. We're going through a lot of change that will make us or break us. And Monday I had a 3-hour men's group that was deep and nourishing, and I felt it. I felt the medicine coming through me and the way I could show up that night. And it was just one moment. And as you said, if we take that medicine, we take the brotherhood power and support in nature, I think those two elements are, the true medicine that we need.
Time spent with brothers and time in nature. Aho.
Yeah, I would add that what I really find brothers are looking for is a place to stop competing, and really step into a place of brotherhood. And for many people, what I've heard, some aversion I've heard around brotherhood work is that it gets into this alpha male, raw football field kind of energy. And what I really feel I'm hearing is that brothers want to be able to not have to try to be a man. And so I really appreciate one of the things we bring forward, which is you don't have to try to be a man. You already are a man. And coming together as men, acknowledging the man that each of us is, and knowing that that's enough, that already has the codes. And it's more a matter of dropping the armor and being able to be brothers.
Mm. Yeah, and dropping the stories we've crafted for ourselves that we have to get somewhere or achieve something or be someone, of a title before we are enough, before we matter, before we count as a man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you're just tuning in, thank you so much. I see we have a few viewers online with us. Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome to put any questions or comments you have about our discussion into the comments here for the live, and I'll see them pop up on my other device here, and we'll be happy to address you. Yeah, guys, I think it's kind of chronic. Like, we live in what we call a meritocracy, right? And I think that the shadow of that idea, like the pursuit of happiness, or that your worth is based on your achievement. Like, how long have we been living inside of that paradigm? Like, America was founded on that. I think there's been hundreds of years of competition and one-upsmanship, like a game that we're all playing with each other. And I think a lot of men are feeling the strain and the fear of that, and ultimately not really wanting to participate in that old paradigm, and somehow kind of feeling either forced to, like I can relate to that, feeling kind of forced to participate in this capitalist rat race kind of thing and have a job and have a salary. Otherwise, I'm going to be in a really bad situation. Or feeling compelled by like the stirrings of their body. It's like if another man comes in and it has a conversation with your beloved, like what goes on in your gut, that suddenly seeing that you might question how much you matter or how much you're worth or whether or not you're lovable, just because that person that you love is maybe receiving attention from someone else. That's where I see like the residues of competition still showing up. Like, most of us are like happy to put that down mentally, but down in our little ones, down in our guts, like where the traumatic memories live, and the first heartbreak you've ever experienced, and all those times that like rejection crept in, like that stuff all gets lodged in our bodies. And I think it takes, there's a lot of different ways to address that, but I think one of the best is to really focus the attention of a bunch of brothers who care for you and love you, all of them turning their gaze on that one piece of you that really needs to be seen, loved, accepted, and felt. Like, that's powerful medicine, when we can all circle around one brother and like concentrate our love on him and do that in turn. I think it's pretty easy to find that we all need it. Like need emphasis on need, like water. Like, it's a type of attention that is so nourishing and life-giving. I think that that's a lot of what's missing for men in the world too. Anything you guys want to add to that?
We got a question from Harry Bow.
Yeah, I see that. Go ahead and read it one.
As I'd say my biggest edge for men's work is feeling fear when in the presence of spiritually advanced men who are also handsome and sexy. The fear rooted in this imagination of this beautiful, sexy man connecting with my beloved. I want to see healing around this pattern. Thoughts?
Yeah, it's a lot of what we were just talking about. What's your response, Juan?
I would say it's beautiful. I think we all deep down inside, because of the competition, think that the other man is going to take, there's someone better or someone that we're less than who's going to take our thing, our possession, our partner. And I feel that is a big piece of this work, is starting to address these myths, these stories that we have in our head that keep us separate, right? Because I'd say that is one of the core pieces that is maintaining dysfunction or war on the planet, is that we fear each other, and we're taught that whoever is the strongest, the best looking, the one with the most, right, ideal everything, right, like the survival of the fit, is the one who will survive, and the ones who are lesser will either die or have to be alone. So I feel that once we can be with each other, right, and the retreat, for example, Harry, when we can actually meet that person that might be triggering you and see that they aren't just the facade or the story or the mask of this man who might be more sexy or beautiful, but also that there's a human being there with their own issues, their own fragilities, their own vulnerability that isn't all that it looks like on the front. And so it's like, it's more so what's inside of a man's heart that allows us to see the little boy and the human being who actually cares and who isn't here to take our stuff or our partner away, who isn't a threat anymore, right? So to really face the part of us that separated and created a threat and release that separation and release the threat.
Yeah, very well said. The retreat brings a lot of that energy to bear, a lot of focus on getting past the exterior of what we perceive in other men. I'm reminded also of like some of the teachings we give about projection, where if you're pointing at somebody else and being like, oh, he's so sexy and beautiful and spiritually advanced, that's not me, right? But we like to draw attention at ReMENber to like, no, that is you. That's you putting your power, projecting your power onto somebody else rather than claiming your own beauty, your own sexiness, your own power, your own desirability. So that's a big piece of the transmission too. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts, Gil?
It's beautiful. I really want to acknowledge this question, and this is, I think, a powerful example of someone that brings forth the deepest fear, insecurity, vulnerability that can be held in that, and that can be honored in that space. And the way out is through and staying in that fire with the brothers, being loved in that, moving the energy in that, and eventually resting. And as you said, Juan, figuring out that we all mirroring each other, we all one and the same, and then resting with this brother that looks so threatening and feeling so safe. It's beautiful. It's a powerful medicine, and this is what it is all about. You know, it's the deepest. You're looking at the root chakra or sex chakra fear that we all carry. I mean, I have not seen anyone, and I've been in 2 decades in men's work and maybe over a decade in conscious sexuality work, and I have not seen a man, no matter where they are on the journey, that actually is still not meeting that part and want to be held in that. Even the difference when you do deep brotherhood work is that you actually have a language and you have a connection and you have the courage to come to the brother and express it and find a way to stay in connection through it. That's the deep work.
In this moment, I am remembering why we call the program ReMENber, because ultimately, a lot of the stuff we're discussing here, the innocence of being with other men, the non-competition, all of us, being born as brothers who, would have grown up snuggling in a pile, like a bunch of wolves, had we not been like picked apart at a young age and told like, no, don't do that. It's like all of the self-defeating, upper limiting stuff that men are men are struggling with these days. Most of that was laid on by society and parents, and the shame, guilt, and fear that's endemic in our culture. And so all that gets laced into the ego. But underneath all of that, before our culturally informed personalities were constructed, we were just that, like innocent boys and girls, just like innocently playing together, not threats to each other, not competing, not having to fight over resources, everybody getting, love from the outside. And I like that I like how many of the pieces we bring into ReMENber of like getting back to those root codes that we were born with that we've forgotten. And one of them that's really special to me is around male intimacy, which Harry went on to say a bit more about, that I think because so many men have had a fear of engaging with their sexuality with men and what that would mean about them, they have cut off all access to any kind of intimacy with brothers, even like holding hands or like putting their arms around each other, or, laying next to each other, just like basic, simple platonic intimacy. And I'm reminded of that poem that we like to quote, that when our sisters are once again permitted to bleed on the earth and brothers are permitted to love each other again, the world will not know war. And that's been a piece that has brought me into a really deep place of love for this brotherhood, and the way that we teach it is to tear down these walls of separation, of intimacy, of love, of connection, so that we can remember, who we were at the start and how we were meant to be as brothers. Corey Pugliese, good to hear from you, bro. Corey is a former ReMENber attendee. He has a question too. What are the most important first steps I could take to begin a men's group in my own community? I want to spread the brotherhood beyond these journeys, but I'm blocked by my fear that I am no expert on being a man, but ultimately know my version of a man is vastly different than others. Great question. I think a lot of men would like to be a part of a men's group and would love to create their own. Certainly that's something that we want to foster through ReMENber, is the creation of ongoing men's groups. And I think we're going to have a really great opportunity to do it this time with the Kingship, our 3-month extended journey, so that that group of men, that cohort of men that comes to Costa Rica, can journey as a men's group indefinitely. But more to Corey's question, I think you've got it, bro, because I think that like your awareness that you're no expert on being a man, you described it as fear, but I would call it an awareness. And if you turn that into the energy of desire, or recognize beneath the fear that it comes from a desire to be okay with not being an expert at being a man in the presence of other fantastic men who are also not experts at being men. I think that it's that humility that will make the invitation that you could put out to your community to come and join, to be a part of a men's group. It's that humility that I think will draw them in. Would you guys agree? Like that's the point of a men's group, perhaps, is to be imperfect together and support each other in that.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, like you said, Corey, you are perfect at being Corey, and the man that is inside you is perfect as it is. So when we can create a space where everyone's version of a man is welcome rather than trying to be something, I'd say that would be one of the bigger ahas as far as making a group, where, if you're making the group, you're calling in all men as they are, embracing the man that we all are. All right, this is, I would say, one of the seeds of ReMENber, and why we call it, one of the elements of why it's even called ReMENber is that we're not here to teach anyone how to be a man. We're here to remember the man that is within us, that we all have. And you don't need to be what would you call it? A professional man.
An expert man.
Expert man.
As if there is such a thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love those perspectives. I don't have much to add. When it comes to actually executing and being in action, it's enough to claim that you want a men's group, and then resting in that and seeing what life is bringing to you. It's enough to invite one friend to say, every Wednesday, let's meet for tea in my house and let's have a men's group. And even if it's your brother, and then this man actually can be inspired. And I started those too, when it was like 2-3 guys, and it became 8, 9, 10. It's an infinite journey. You can do it for 2 decades, 3 decades. You can move online today. So yeah, invite your best friend, sit together, call it a men group, and start getting nourished.
Yeah.
And if you need us, you can always reach out to us, and we can have a quick conversation and give you maybe a few guidelines, or we have some documents or an agreement, and
totally
we'll support you. Absolutely.
A simple point of guidance, maybe to wrap this particular question up, is what's the medicine you want to receive from a men's group? Okay, offer that and invite other people to offer the same medicine. And then each of you can get what you need. So Jeffrey Peltz, thank you for the question, Jeffrey. Jeffrey chimes in with one that I think is a great question. He's noticed over the years, within and without myself, that those of us trying to discover our purpose as well as heal once again get caught up in the quote, I should do this, I'm only worthy if I do this conversation. And the ways of being with ourselves and mission say this in the past has occurred to me as a burden. It takes the joy from giving our gifts to the world. Do you guys have this experience, and how might the training help with the misconception? So it might've been a typo in there, but what I'm getting from the question is like looking for purpose, but still being plagued with the feeling of like, I have to find something. I have to like find my purpose. I have to find my expression. It's only until I do that, or only once I do that, that I'm finally worthy. I think that that's the gist of what Jeffrey is asking here. And if I'm incorrect about that, Jeffrey, please fire back. But I'm reminded of the transmission that we give throughout the week of the 5 rites of passage, and the last of which is sacred purpose. And the ones that come before that, the spiral path, the inner beloved, shadow work, and family of origin, not necessarily in that order, are the necessary gates, I suppose, or the initiations, the rites of passage that we each have to go to really arrive at sacred purpose. So what I hear in Jeffrey's question is somebody going about looking for sacred purpose, perhaps without having passed through all those gates already of doing the deep healing work around family of origin, around the inner relationship, so that you're not beating yourself up for not being enough anymore. And the shadow work of, for example, like projecting greatness on other men, but not acknowledging it in yourself. I think it's through those other rites of passage that sacred purpose really emerges as the thing that you are just obviously meant to do. It's not something that you have to necessarily achieve. You're already doing it because it is what you were born for. I'm curious if that lands for you guys and what you think of that perception that a lot of men have, that they need to find the thing, they need to find their purpose in order to be worthy.
Yeah, that's a big one. I mean, I think we live in a world that believes we have to be something and achieve something, and it's a very masculine point of view. And I would say it's an unhealthy masculine or disconnected from the heart masculine view, where if I am not completing and doing something, then my value does not matter because I'm not somehow, the expert man, the expert successful human who has accomplished. But at the same time, there is something about the masculine that wants to accomplish, that wants to fix, that wants to make things better, that thrives when it has a purpose and a mission. And so the more we can remove it from what it should be, right? Because that's what I heard in Jeffrey's share, is that there's the should, right? Once it becomes, it's what I want to be, it's who I am, that my mission becomes, then we're not comparing and contrasting. It isn't about something outside of us, but something from within that is guiding us.
Yeah, how about you, Gilly? I mean, you've found a lot of purpose. You've found a lot of purpose in your life, brother. You've come a long way down that path.
Yeah, and I also feel a lot of compassion about this question. I absolutely, because I know that when it did not come from a sacred purpose, it did not come from where I really wanted to give myself, it was painful because it just did not feel aligned. And it did feel like a burden. It did feel like something that I do to get an approval. I do to be matter. I do to be seen. And this is what I started at the beginning. It's kind of a dance today, because I like what you both said. I like the deep, I think, human right and deep human desire to be loved in all our parts, to be loved in all our ways, to be loved in the places that want to rest now and not seek anything. And there's also something powerful in claiming a direction, setting a direction, giving ourselves to something that is bigger than us. And it can also be just resting in at the moment. That's where I'm at. It can be in, I'm giving myself to this relationship, or I'm giving myself to this daily practice. It doesn't have to be something that is so big. If the deep desire and the longing of the soul is to rest and relax and be more in the feminine energy of flow and surrender and compassion, and fuck yeah, we need more men like that. We're celebrating that. We want to be taught that way. So
yeah.
It's the integration of all of it is eventually the spot.
Beautifully said,
the
Gilly.
journey. Thank
Yeah, beautifully said. Yeah, I'm also reminded of like this beautiful conversation that we have at ReMENber about trust, about basic trust. And for so many of us, like purpose gets entangled with making money or having, some amount of safety in life, that like we have to secure all of that. We have to like have a title, have a purpose, have a thing that is generative in order to matter and in order to be safe as a man, but there's so much to be gained from relaxing into trusting what is, trusting your body, trusting the men around you, trusting that life is working for you, and that your purpose will naturally express from a place of having open channels, open heart, open solar plexus, and open power. And all of those things can come from focusing inward on the trust piece. And so ultimately, like, trust and security isn't gained from achievement. It's gained from remembering that it was there all along. Safety is an inside job, as Frank likes to say. Shout out to Frank and Nimai, who could not be here on this call with us, our ReMENber godfathers. Looking forward to being in Costa Rica with you, bros. And I'm also really looking forward to being in Costa Rica with this brother coming onto the screen any second now. Jeff Gleason is in the house.
Wow. Jeff.
Jeff clearly has not cut his hair since the last time we were in Costa Rica. What up, bro?
What's going on?
Jeff, good to see you.
Man, you've gone full Viking. You've gone full Viking, haven't you?
Oh yeah, full Viking.
Yeah, you're getting some shout outs on the comments, Jeff. It's great to see you.
Good to see you, brothers.
So, bro, can we rest our hearts on the truth that you're coming to join us this winter?
Yes, that is the plan. I got to get my passport, and I'm in Costa Rica, brothers.
Fantastic. Jeff is going to be one of our assistants at the next ReMENber gathering in Costa Rica. He's a graduate from last year, all around great bro, and a creator of a men's group near where you live. Isn't that right?
Yes. Yeah. Like after ReMENber last year, one of my commitments was creating a local group, and I've got it going. And it's amazing. These bros are awesome. They're showing up. It's incredible.
Nice. Yeah, Corey was just on here earlier asking questions about how does somebody start a men's group, and how do you go about doing that from the arrogance of thinking you're an expert man, and why would anybody want to come spend time with you if you don't have all your shit figured out? What do you have to say to that, Jeff? What was it like for you to start a men's group from a place from wherever you came from?
For me, it was, brothers around me were asking me what was going on, what I was doing, and they could feel a shift that was happening. And, I had my own stories that were getting in the way of me starting it. And finally, once I just put those stories to the side and said, you know what, I'm going to just start this and see who shows up, and whoever shows up, it's meant to be. And I had 3 bros who showed up fully, and they're calling in other brothers right now, and they're on the fence, but it's a matter of just jumping in and going. And also, I don't have it all figured out, and there's days that they support me, and then there's days that I support them, and that's the whole beauty of the brotherhood, I feel like, is supporting each other. So yeah, it's just, you start it, you just jump and go and invite people, and whoever shows up, it's meant to be.
That's beautiful. Well done, brother. Thank you for your service. Thank you for getting out there and offering your love and creating a group, and for bringing it back to ReMENber once again, to keep carrying the transmission with us, man. I'm so excited to have you there.
Yeah, incredible. Love it.
Yeah, fantastic. Jeff, I'm gonna mute you real quick so we don't get any background noise. If you want to share anything else, brother, raise your hand and we'll come back to you. And maybe you can mute yourself. I can't do it on my end. But we got another comment from brother Renan, who I met last May. He says, in my journey, I had to take a path away from my masculinity and listen to the other, quote, person within me. By simply acknowledging that I am dualistic in nature, I gave permission for learning from my feminine side. This changed my life with myself and women in particular. More of a comment than a question, but I love that message, Renan. Thank you so much. Because, for me personally, like I did several years of men's work before meeting the ReMENber brothers. And that was the biggest shift for me from what I was doing in the past to what I am doing with you guys. And by extension with ISTA as well, is really this marriage of our masculine and feminine, rather than polarizing men into thinking they need to be more masculine, which I think is a weight that a lot of men are carrying, that they're not masculine enough. But I think really the medicine of ReMENber, and what's really worked for me is recognizing it's not about like building one side of you up at the expense of the other. It's about integrating the two. It's about having the greatest range of your self-expression that you can. And I think maybe that's more the approach of integration rather than optimization, right? And the further you can stretch into your feminine, the further you can stretch into your masculine, and the whole being expands into a greater and greater range of possibilities of who they are. That was eye-opening for me, and made it really easy for me to shift directions and decide like, no, this is the men's work I want to do. But yeah, congratulations to you, Renan, for taking that on in your journey. And I hope that you can join us down there, because I think you'd have a lot to both give and receive from being on that journey yourself and being a model of that work in action. How about you guys? How do you feel about the work of integrating your feminine, and how has ReMENber supported you in that?
It's sorry, I was making sure I'm not mute.
No, you're good.
Yeah, it's kind of how it's going. To be able to receive the brothers, we have to open up to receive. The receiving element is more of a feminine. The receiving element, that's why we're doing it on the land in Costa Rica. That is such a healing space. The land in Costa Rica, there's a reason why, right? Only between ISTA and ReMENber, we have about 5 gatherings and workshops in December, because the healing land of Costa Rica is transformative. It's incredible, and especially the jungle and where we at. So being able to receive the land, being able to receive each other, actually receiving from the feminine, allow us to rise into our masculine power. And I love what Renan says, that actually receiving himself in his feminine qualities allowed him to meet the women in more powerful way. Oh, yeah. Which I assume that when he says that the women also perceive him standing in his core masculine power as well as in his feminine. So absolutely. And that's what we do at ReMENber. We receiving each other in a way, and we're receiving nature that is deeply healing and transformative and empowering.
Fantastic food as well, and fresh coconuts right off the
tree.
Good.
And the ocean, and
the howler monkeys, and the everything.
All of it.
Trees in Costa Rica have rights. Like, you can't cut them down once they get to a certain size. I think it speaks to like the integration of honoring the goddess, honoring nature, honoring the earth, and the feminine is imbued in that whole country. Fucking radical and beautiful. And I think it does, to your point, Gilly, it supports the work we do really, really beautifully.
Yeah. I mean, even to add to that, they don't have a standing army as far as how they feel it should be, right? And so this reception, to me, where I've seen it is in the ability to receive each other without armor, right? And so how do we hold each other as brothers without the armor that says, I am a man, right? Where there's more of a softness. There's a softness. And what I really noticed is there's a relaxation in the nervous system that I felt in ReMENber. And then from that relaxed place to complete a question I think Jeff was asking is, how does that purpose come in through ReMENber? Is that once we release that have to, should element, which I'm going to call the unhealthy masculine, or the armor of like, this is who I have to be, when we can relax and allow that inner what we're calling the feminine, right? The inner part of us, the part of us that dreams, that has inspiration, that has visions. When we can relax the part that's been inhibiting what was inside, then our real purpose and mission comes through. And I know that ReMENber, as it keeps evolving, that purpose and that mission keeps evolving. But ultimately, the whole journey is about finding that purpose, that seed of your consciousness that lets you plant and penetrate the world with love rather than with a should or I must, right? And having your brothers be there as a form of witnessing and accountability to witness you in your power that comes from within, to be received in your power as a man who has the answers and doesn't need someone to tell them what it is, but know that as you relax, as you are held by other brothers in this relaxation of truth, of love, of vulnerability, then that true purpose really starts to get defined and comes out from what I'm going to call, what we've been calling this receptivity or the feminine, right? That the words and the mission and the purpose comes from the masculine serving the feminine within.
Love it, man. I felt the stirring in my chest from listening to that share. Yeah, this piece about the inner beloved that we teach on is so important. It's like, where inside of us are you judging, neglecting, suppressing, or otherwise marginalizing parts of yourself? You know, whether it's your feeling body, your emotions, or your sexual energy, or your power, or your primal ferocity. Yeah. Really beautiful. Yeah. Making space for all of those connections to exist within you. Let's get to like a last question here. Jeffrey has come back with another kind of a nice hinge from what we're talking about right now. He says, regarding sexual energy, it seems as people, we are either overextending and depleting ourselves, and or we are suppressing our sexual energy. Is this something we address at the training? It's a very challenging and super important area of life that I'm really looking to transform and work with. Thank you, Jeffrey, for that question. Yeah, I feel the question coming from a place of how do we manage our sexual energy? You know, it's also a topic that isn't widely being discussed in the world, and a topic that a lot of men don't really go into, at least as far as I can tell. But I think that there's something to that it's sex exists in this realm that's still pretty shadowy and taboo and not talked about in our culture. And so we don't necessarily know how to relate to our sexual energy. We either I think a lot of men feel we either need to like tamp it down, or we need to pursue it, put it on a pedestal, make sex the most important thing, or make relationship the most important thing. I think also in a way, kind of like purpose of like feeling like we are enough of a man. And so I think we end up chasing some prize down a sexual path or denying that we want that. So there's a bit of like there's confusion on both ends of that spectrum. And I think one of the things that ReMENber does beautifully is like normalize a conversation about sexuality and give men a space where they can ask a question just like this and look around the room and see how many other men are going through the same thing. And just to normalize the difficulty or the intensity or the confusion around, what do we do with this thing between our legs? What do we do with these feelings in our body? What do we do when we feel like a lion that wants to tackle that gazelle and fuck it into the ground? Not that lions fuck gazelles, but you know what I mean. You know, when that predatorial energy comes up in our bodies, because it does, I think, for all of us, every once in a while, just the desire to hunt and take, you know, how do we deal with that? And how do we have a conversation as brothers to help men feel safer with the sexual power coming through them?
I love this question. Sexual energy, we say, is life force, and I also relate it to the 5 rites of passage. Sexual energy that is coming from a place that is complete and healed and empowered can serve so much, can truly, truly serve. And the question becomes, how do I serve with my sexual energy? And it can be I ravish and I take because there is consent. And so I do think, and I know that our journey that includes sexuality and includes the work of the entire human being, include the work on the 7 chakras and archetypes, and address that and meet that. And eventually, because of the level of depth that we go and we meet all those places of shadow, we are going to rest in a place of intimacy. And then what I learned is that I can relax. If my desire is to be more contained in my sexual energy and hold it for myself or hold it for other projects, then I feel great about that. I acknowledge it and I feel great. And if my desire is to express it, and I find a partner and I create a scene, or I'm in a consensual connection that allows me to express that. And sometimes I fuck up, and thank God I have a lot of good sisters and brothers that can stay in the fire with us. And that to say also about ReMENber, we're not only going to the light and the healing, we are meeting the fire, the rage, the roar, the anger, the deep places, the violence, and we do it in a safe place that we can move that energy and acknowledge all those parts that can actually serve us. Big topic, big one.
So glad we have your
obviously
wisdom.
we have the support of Ista too, that a lot of our brothers come from that field, and Ista is doing an incredible job in bringing awareness and deep transformation.
I would add that throughout the whole week, we are addressing the sacredness and the power of our sexual energy. And we're really building power behind it. And there's a way that we do that in the training where it really leads through the entire week of how do we charge that sexual energy that comes from the masculine, the male's sexual energy, to really hone it into our intention. And once we have a better frame of how sacred our sexual energy is to create life on the planet, not just to create life, but to give life to our projects and to the things that we love, then I would say that really supports us to not leak it as much, right? To really start to have a better relationship with sexual energy as a force of nature and a sacred thing that gives us power and allows us to create on the planet. And so once that comes into a better relationship, I see that supports, our own gauge of, where am I giving too much? Where am I holding back? And how do I bring them together to do it, to stay in that fine line of my sword, of my creation, of who I am and how I show up on the planet.
Normalizing a healthy relationship to sexual energy as a path to sacred purpose. Fucking great. I love you guys. Jeff, you want to bring us home real quick? Anything you want to add to the conversation, brother?
Yeah, that last piece there, Juanis, was just like it. I feel like that encapsulated like what I've experienced in this last year after ReMENber, is just really understanding my power, integrating it, and knowing how I'm going to penetrate the world and how I want to penetrate the world, and actually coming from a place of truth rather than a place of what I think other people's want from me, and really just feeling at my core what it is and how I want to move in the world. And yeah, I definitely fuck up along the way, and I lean on my brothers who have supported me in this process to pull me back up, and then it's back at it again. And that's what I got out of ReMENber a lot. It was just, how am I actually going to penetrate the world and all of that energy, and bring other brothers in. That feels really good.
You feel really good, Jeff. Yeah, proud of you, man. It's great to see how your life has developed this last year. And so excited to journey with you again. For all of you who tuned in to join our live today, thank you so much. This is the ReMENber Brotherhood. We are meeting again next January 6th through the 10th near Nosara in Costa Rica. Really hot place to be, a beautiful time of year when it's not quite so hot. We'll be in the jungles at Alia Retreat Center having a great time. And beyond that, we're offering a 3-month extended integration journey for the cohort of men that come to Costa Rica to continue to weave and grow and bond and receive more teachings from your facilitators and support calls in between, so that we can do that sort of men's group circling where you can bring your vulnerable concerns, or, you know, where are you still struggling, and have a circle of men to help you get back into your ease, your center, your power, and your creative expression. So the website's in the comments. Feel free to DM any of us if you have further questions. We'd love to have you. And you can sign up through the website. We have about 6 or 7 early bird price slots left, but they won't last long, especially after today's beautiful conversation. Thank you, Juan. Thank you, Gilly. Thank you, Jeff. I fucking love you guys.
Love you. Can't wait to see
I
you.
love you,
all.
Blake.
Aho,
Thank
brothers.
you for your powerful moderation. And yeah, aho.
Aho. Fantastic. See you guys in the jungle.